What's up, world? I am Thunder Thief, and today we are talking about the 9th track on my album, Wake Up. This was the first song that I wrote in my new house. In December of 2020, I was fortunate enough to buy my first place. And when I got this place, there was this loft that I knew I wanted to put my studio up there. And I'm up here right now as I'm recording this. And I just love not staring at a wall. I love the way the morning light comes in through the window. And I love the fact that it's sort of like the crown on top of my place. Like I call this place the Infinest because it is an elevating experience to get to create up here when I've never gotten to do that before. Like every one of my studios has been in like a dining room and you're watching a wall and looking at a computer monitor. And as a bass player, like I have made all of my favorite music standing up and moving around. And that, I think that was one of the hardest things for me when I started learning just producing and engineering is it's such a sedentary act, and it totally turned me around just as far as being creative and having to sit there. So this place, the Infinest, is a standing desk studio, and I've never generated more creative ideas at one time or in a small amount of time than I have here. And this song was the first complete idea that I wrote here, and it's the first song that I wrote when I found Diva. In late 2019, I found out about this guy, Lane 8, and he lives in Colorado now and has these really lush and beautiful dance songs. And I really appreciated his use of like texture and the melodic choices that he made. Like he writes really beautiful stuff. And I did some research on some equipment he might be using, and this is the first place where I discovered Diva and exploring the sounds that this synth sort of naturally fell into. It felt like I found, like another bass guitar that I really loved, another P bass, or I don't know, just one of those instruments that like, as soon as you put your hands on it, you love what it's doing. And that doesn't happen all the time. So it was cool to find one of those again. This riff that I wrote is the opener to the song. And that's a combination of two versions of Diva playing like low chords and high chords. And I really liked the thickness of it. I liked the movement of it and how lush those pads are. The arpeggio that I wrote next was me just basically ripping off Lane 8 and exploring like an arpeggioed riff, but offsetting a note or two within it to like break up the pattern and have it be, I don't know, it's very interesting how changing like one note and its position and where it hits, like it can feel so different, and it's a matter of a millisecond. And being able to hear that and see that and do that, it's like a fun little puzzle piece that you can just take out. And I really learned that through making this arpeggio. And between that riff changing with the chord progression and evolving with the sound, like that was the basis I needed to like start structuring my track. I knew I wanted that arpeggio to just like kind of run through the whole thing more or less, but evolve to be at the very front and the very back supporting other things. I played with that concept a lot on this record and I learned a lot from it. I don't think my new stuff isn't as long and drawn out. I'm trying to do a lot more changes in the middle. But this song was a lesson in staying in the pocket and riffing all around it. Like the bass guitar riff that I have in this track does the same thing throughout the whole song, but it's just one of those nice, like kind of classic, I don't know, rock riffs and things, like rock riff that can stay for the whole song. And it's also one of the only ones that I play with my fingers instead of a pick. There's a lot of bass guitar in this record, but like it was part of the exploration for me to differentiate between pick and fingers on both the guitar and the bass. And this song just had this really soft, laid back vibe, and I wanted the bass to reflect that. And even that has a change in note where like that chord progression gets differentiated towards the end. And I thought it was a perfect foundation for this song to sit. And of course, in my journey to rip off Lane 8 more, it's got to be a 4 on the floor, laid back drum beat. And when I was writing this song, the percussion of it, I was thinking about being a drummer again, and I hadn't yet gotten my electric drum kit, so it was a lot of just visualization while finger drumming. And I thought about when I was in college, I was in this jazz group. I switched off between playing bass and drums, and at the time, I was still very much like learning just the like that mid-level intricacy stuff where you like hit this plateau and you really got to start to dig in to explore like the next level of competency. And I thought about the jazz relationship of being real intentional with your left foot, which is the hi-hat, and just like letting that be its own noise while your two hands are doing other stuff. And I wrote this house beat sort of based on that. That just holds it down for the whole song. As I was listening to all of those riffs, you know, together, just running on a loop, I wanted some stuff that was more melodically interesting. And as I sat there listening to that loop, I had my guitar on, and I had just found this guitar tone with it that for a lead, I thought was just so beautiful and clean that it let a lot of just what your hands are actually doing through. And I just started noodling around and came up with this riff like pretty quickly. And as soon as I found it and recorded it, it's been one of my favorite riffs I've written ever since. That riff's kind of got everything to me. It's got some fast picking parts. It's got a slide. It's got an accidental note in there. It's really one of those moments that happened, and I was really grateful to be recording. Like, you know, I'll just run the record button while I'm noodling around trying to find something. And this one kind of just naturally fell into my hands after like 2 or 3 passes of trying it out. I thought it was a great moment to have in the song and to showcase. But if I wanted this track to, you know, be 3.5, 4 minutes, I was going to need something else besides just the guitar part. This is another first for this record where I made the decision to start singing more and putting my voice at the front of a song and feeling good about it. And there's a lot of me trying to explore what my voice is in this record. And, you know, I think that's an ever-evolving process, especially when you have a timbre that you can work with, but it's not inspiring all of the time vocally. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the kind of vocalist that I wanted to be and what tones I could start with to start like folding that into my music again. I write a lot in the mornings. I don't know, when the sun's up and out is usually my most productive time. And usually in the winter, like in Colorado, we're so lucky that we get like so many days of sunshine. And even when it snows real hard, the next day will be sunny. And those are my favorite mornings to write, where it's cold outside, some snow on the ground, but it's melting because the sun's out and it's shining. But it's not warm enough to like want to go outside and spend it outside all the time, so I feel good about being inside working on music. That's one of the hardest parts to me about being a music producer, is like my job is inherently done inside. And another big part of my life is my food company that we do farmers markets and all sorts of outdoor stuff all the time. So like my life is lived with purpose and intention both inside and outside. But if I could, I would have it almost all outside. So I was just listening to this in the morning and thinking about just my state of being at the time. Like early 2021 was an immensely creative and driven time, but it was also super isolating and super taxing. Like, man. And that's what drove my tone of voice and intention for this, was to have it be this smooth yet motivating yet kind of digging intention, like I think like Morpheus from the Matrix, basically. And I came up with the words as soon as I came up with the melody. Like they came just right after each other. And this is what I ended up putting down.
If it takes all night just to wake up, such a waste of time. If it takes all night just to wake up, such a waste of time.
It's such a weird sound for me, like that having a upfront, low voice, sort of whispered vocal is new for me. Most of my time spent behind a mic, I was singing like rock songs and really like straining my voice and yelling. I was in some like hardcore metal bands, so I was screaming and it was always like really high, high pitched. And I am realizing more and more that the timbre of my voice is served better like at a lower octave, and moving toward trying to speak from your chest and speak from your heart, really, and your stomach. Like it's something I've always struggled with. And even in college when I was getting voice lessons, like that was one of my biggest hurdles, was like resonating from my chest and not from my head. And even now when I'm talking, like I'm trying to talk differently, and you can hear when I am vibrating mostly in my head versus when I'm vibrating mostly from my chest. And there's this distinct difference in body. And I made the conscious effort to perform with my voice resonating from my chest. And even though this is like a low whispery part, I still think that it was captured from there, and it's helping me move my voice in a whole different direction that I'm satisfied with. And I love that this track is titled Wake Up, because even though it's not the first song on the album, it was the first song for the album. And I knew that I had started to find a direction and a sonic template to start sketching out a ton of ideas and getting to choose from a multitude of different directions rather than just clawing on from like one song to the next, like needing to complete every idea that was worth putting down. This track really helped me open up and get to that level of making 40, 50 ideas to cultivate an album from. And it gave me the confidence to know like, hey, I've got a bunch of stuff to say in me, and don't be afraid to use any of it. I hope you enjoy. This one's called Wake Up.